Welcome to Cleave, the podcast about leaving what keeps you stuck and cleaving to what makes you whole. I'm John, and my wife Ashley and I talk about marriage, family dynamics, healing, and faith with real stories and real tools you can actually use. If you've been trying to break cycles and build something healthier, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Long time no see.
It's been a minute.
This is your friends, John and Ash, and what was formerly known as the Living in Truth Project podcast is now called Cleave, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But we are super excited to be here on camera with you and to do a little bit of long form communication. We've been having a lot of fun with reels and social media content, but there is a deep desire both by all of you and by us to have longer conversations on these subjects. So we're really excited to reboot this and to welcome so many new friends to the podcast. And we thought it would be a good idea to just kick off who we are and do a little bit of introduction. And then we'll tee up what this podcast 2.0 actually is. And it should be a ton of fun. So I want you to meet my wife, Ashley, because she is one that is often behind the scenes on our social media platforms, but she is the heart and soul of all of this. I would not know what I know and wouldn't be able to share what I share without her. And it's not even just her own personal experience, which she's going to get into, but she is an amazing communicator and an amazing educator and an awesome just partner in crime. Without further ado, here is my amazing wife, Ashley. So Ash, tell everyone about yourself.
Hi. Yes, I'm Ashley. I am often peppering John with all kinds of bits of information that he can share on the social media channels. I don't feel like the way he's done it with reels and things is quite my gift or my passion. So he's a great presenter in that regard. But yeah, the podcast and just being able to speak and tell what I've learned is more my vibe. So it's fun to be back. As John mentioned, we have done this before. It was a different podcast under a different name. But I didn't feel like I was quite ready to do it yet. I found myself wondering, how much should I say? How much shouldn't I? To be an effective teacher, you obviously need to share some things, but not all. And I was really grappling with, am I really ready to discern what is going to actually be helpful and what isn't? We took a little break, and that time has been really good for me to continue to heal and educate and learn. And we feel ready to be back at it and teach what we know. We're not licensed therapists. We're just two people with life experience. And we have learned so much that has ultimately blessed our lives in enormous ways. And I think that's the thing we are so anxious to share. It's like a light turned on when you realize that you've been able to grow and feel so much joy in a lot of ways. You want to help others to be able to feel the same way. That's ultimately why we're here. Education for the betterment of everybody, for the people who were where we have been, to help them get to where we are. We also had amazing mentors who took the time to put themselves out there, understand what was happening, and educate.
So tell everyone about who you are. Maybe I'll do a quick introduction on Ash. She's the youngest of 7 kids. She grew up in Provo, Utah, and went to Brigham Young University for school. And you studied marriage, family, human development, which at the time you thought was what? I wouldn't say not a serious degree.
You would hear, oh, girls at BYU, they just want to be moms and do marriage, family, and human development. Ultimately, that is what I wanted to do, but it seemed like there was shame around it. It wasn't as worthy as the accounting program or the marketing program. So I originally thought that I would be a history major. I chose that not because I love history. I just didn't know what else to choose. So I started taking history classes and I was like, I don't know that I can do this. And I took one elective in the marriage and family and human development program. And For the first time ever, I felt like I was hooked. I loved the information that I was receiving from my professors. I loved the textbooks. I felt joy in what I was studying because school before that was a slugfest. You just go through. Now I found myself loving to learn, and that was exciting for me. I didn't know this about myself. And this is the information that I loved. It's human development and human relations and just ultimately how to have a healthy life as a human.
Talk about families. What things did you
Yeah.
observe as the youngest of 7 kids? Like, there was obviously some underlying desire there that you had.
I think at the time I didn't really know how much I needed the information personally. As the youngest, I observed a lot. And I like to say I had a lot of examples of what not to do, but I didn't have a lot of examples of what to do. I just knew what I wanted. First and foremost, I wanted a happy marriage and a marriage that I felt genuinely loved in and that I could give genuine love in return. And that was my ultimate goal. First and foremost, I didn't really know how to create that. There were no examples. I felt in my heart that better marriages, it was possible. That marriage was presented to me in my home as just a struggle. I would dream of this thing. I didn't know how close to real I could make it, but would daydream my whole life of having a loving marriage. I started to really put some pieces of the puzzle together. And I think that God was teaching me even before I recognized He was teaching me. I started to really observe patterns and think, I want to do that. I don't want to do that. That doesn't seem like a good idea. I don't want to get stuck in that trap. And so, yeah, I call them little nuggets along the way or just pieces of the puzzle that ultimately came together for me after a lot of life experience. I had a lot of experiences growing up where I just thought, how do I make sure I don't repeat that? Ultimately, John is that really different thing. And you'll find out why through the story.
We don't want this whole episode to be the tell-all where we tell everything super high level. It's been interesting, even on Instagram, I have people that ask, how do you guys know these things? They don't know our story. What really got us back into the books studying about relationships and human development and parenting on a way more deep level. The super high level part of the story is that for about 3.5 years now, we have been estranged from Ashley's family of 40 people.
We say 40 because it's roughly, I should
Yeah.
probably count
Get
them
the
up. But
exact number.
my, parents, siblings, nieces, and nephews as the youngest of 7 children. There are many grandkids. We'll go into this later talking about enmeshment, but we started to place boundaries, and these are the things we're okay with, and these are the things that we're not okay with. Ultimately, that was not okay for them, and they turned everybody against us. In narcissistic families, it's all or nothing. You play by their rules, or you will be cut off and X'd out. And that is what happened to us as we've studied the why. It's very classic what happens in these systems.
It's shocking how textbook it is. When you go through it, you think you're the only person that would have this experience. And then when you zoom out and learn about it, these are absolute patterns that exist in family systems since the beginning of time. Because we've jumped into scripture, and obviously we have a lot of kind of Christian-based theology as well in the content that we produce and that we talk about. But even in scripture, there are these patterns that exist within families. When you look high level right now, the Beckhams have an estranged situation with their oldest son. When you look at the royal family in England, you have Prince Harry, who is estranged. So it doesn't matter if you are royalty, if you're a mega millionaire, if you are a Mormon family from Provo, or anywhere in between, these things do exist. And we just feel like knowledge is power. And if more people can become aware of these dynamics, then hopefully we as a people, as a species, as humans, we can get healthier and have healthier families healthier relationships, healthier marriages,
Wow.
better connection to the gospel. We've seen the fruits of that and have zero regret about the path that we're on. We're so grateful that we're on the path, but it comes with a lot of heartache and hard through the process too. So we want to be as real as we can through that as well. But
Yeah. Especially on the marriage front. We're here because we want to help create stronger families. And that starts with a strong, healthy marriage. And a lot of times, people and their expectations and each person's family of origin can get in the way. And we don't even recognize how we are allowing that to happen. If there's anything that I'm really passionate about, I'm not really passionate about talking about family estrangement. It's not actually my favorite subject, but I had to learn about it, understand it, and even experience it to get to a really healthy, unified marriage. And it's not perfect. Our marriage is not perfect. You'll continue to hear us say that. We're not here to pretend that we don't have something real, that we're still two human beings trying to come together and become one. But it's just working so much better now. We have gotten rid of all the expectations of everybody else, and we have learned to say, okay, what do we think? And we learn to prioritize each other above everybody else's opinions and expectations. And it takes a lot of mental toughness to get to that point. But when you do it, you start to create trust within your marriage with each other. And it creates a really healthy foundation for you and then your children. And so we just believe these conversations have to be had to build healthy marriages and then by extension, healthy families. Society just didn't have this kind of light and knowledge. I think that the emotional intelligence of society is raising, and I attribute that to the light of Christ. As it comes near to his coming, there will be more light and knowledge poured out upon the earth. I really believe that he is teaching people emotional intelligence, the framework of healthy relationships, in a way that society never understood before. They just understood obedience and expectation and kind of like shame-based for those who don't fall in line. And that was the best they knew. And so we're not here to blame, but to say we see that we understand things better now more than ever, and more light and truth in this regard keeps coming. And we want to help teach about it.
and I think that as Ashley being the youngest, and I'm the oldest of 7 kids. So we have a very interesting dynamic in our marriage from the get-go because we have been bookends. And the funny thing is, like when we got married, Ashley became the oldest in my family and I became the youngest in her family. And that is a really interesting role dynamic to observe things from. You just have those things where you scratch your head and you wonder, why is it this way? And why is it that way? And you brush a lot of things under the rug as families do. But to Ashley's point, there is a lot of knowledge out there and you can get answers to what that is. We just are big advocates that when you get that light and truth in your life, when you know better, you need to do better. And so for us, as we gained that knowledge, we were not going to stay status quo. We were going to apply the new knowledge that we had for ourselves in marriage, but also for ourselves as parents. We have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. Our oldest is going to be graduating from high school this year and going on a mission, and our life is going to start shifting in that direction. But we want to show up for our kids because we want to give them the best opportunity to have a healthy marriage for their generation. And we want to make sure that we don't screw that up, right? To whatever degree possible. And again, we aren't perfect, but that's really where the intent came. How can we be better for them? And our hope is that they will have even better marriages than we do and better knowledge, truth, understanding, and testimonies. So that's really the intent behind where this journey came from.
We want to feel like we are a source of relief for our children, especially as they go into adulthood, and that we can be there as true sources of strength for them, not just another obligation that they need to fulfill. That's something that I really started to feel the weight of as time went on in my own family of origin. I felt a lot of support by way of these people are helping my life be better. So much obligation. The older we became, the more time that went on, the obligations became more and more to a point where it did feel like a weight and a responsibility.
Because of the size of the family too, we just felt like a number. Like we were just a cog in the wheel, and there was zero regard for what we needed.
I would say it's bodies in a room.
Yeah.
Sometimes parents felt the only thing they want is bodies in a room who are willing to be there and get along. There were
Or not even get along.
Who
They just
cared
wanted
about the quality of the relationships.
They just wanted presence.
I'm saying
Yeah.
in that moment,
Yeah.
like just for the family dinner, we don't really care if things aren't going well in your personal lives. You show up, you make it good for this dinner, you make us feel
Yeah.
good, and then you can leave and we don't want to know about it. It just started to feel like, gosh, the way we feel in our experiences within this family unit, nobody even cares. Our job is to show up and make it happy for them at all costs, and then continue to do it whenever they decided they wanted it, which was usually around holidays, first and foremost.
And we won't go into that was the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
Was the aha. And then as we dove deeper, it got worse and worse. And we've committed that this is not the air of the dirty laundry episode. The audience to know, because I think there is a lot of curiosity, that it wasn't just that we didn't feel valued when we showed up to dinner at the family dinner. I just don't want people to think that we're estranged. Runs much deeper than that. We will talk about it over the course of episodes in different subjects, but trust us, this was quite a journey. We would not have taken any of this lightly. It was a process.
We were just giving the high level.
I just am letting everyone know that this estrangement situation, just because
this topic is tricky, because you do get people who understand it, and then it's become trendy since we did it. But then you have the whole other subset of a population that thinks that millennials are just entitled and whining because they didn't get their way.
They're just being dramatic or
and
selfish.
So I think that's why you're feeling like you need to explain it, probably for good reason.
Yeah. So anyways, trust us, we'll get into that a little bit more. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about, just to pivot from that, so you can know a little bit more about why we're here and our background and who we are. But let's dive into the meat of it a little bit more. So when we ended the Living in Truth project, our goal, at least with that initial phase of this, was, and it still is, we are deeply passionate about truth. And we know that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light. And he exists within all truth, gospel truth, scientific truth, and truth about family systems and patterns. So that was where the Living in Truth project came from. We were on a quest to really understand that. And we did, I tell people sometimes, even with our testimonies, we had to deconstruct our faith and then rebuild it. That was never like we left the church or we left our testimonies. It was more that we had to start looking at singular gospel principles from a different lens.
I had to start redefining every term I know. So what does love look like? One of my really good friends, we were on a walk, and I said, I love my family so much and I want to do right by them. And she said, wait, I think that you need to redefine what love means. I think that you think love means compliance, and that's not what love means. And that statement right there just blew my mind open. And I was like, you're right. I had never cognitively understood that my brain actually did that, because that's what I was taught in my home. If you love me, you will obey, but it really is comply. And so I had to redefine the term love. What does it actually mean? And that's how we deconstructed our testimonies and then rebuilt them. I feel like our faith in Jesus Christ, he's always been at the head of this journey for us and taught me unbelievable things that I could have gotten in no other way, but I did have to learn how to redefine every term. And then I brought John along with that journey with me, and we just started looking.
Because what you need to understand about Ash and I is we are talkers and we are communicators. And so we are that couple that will stay in bed and we will talk until we sleep, because we process a lot and we learn a lot and we're deeply passionate. And when we go on vacation, we like to listen to audiobooks and podcast episodes, and we're sharing reels constantly with each other to learn and understand things and look at it from a different lens. So we're very much a partnership in that. And it's been really awesome. We've really loved it. But yeah, that quest for truth, and again, not just gospel truth, but also scientific truth, human behavior truth. We want to understand the why behind things, and also why we do what we do, and why we've hurt each other or why we've hurt other people, and dig to the root and then figure out how to heal that so that we can have the most healthy relationships possible. And when you do that, for those of you that have been there, it is a major grief event, because your world gets flipped completely upside down when you start viewing it from that lens. And it comes with a lot of goodbyes. We have completely different friends than we had 5 years ago. We don't obviously have the family relationships that we had, but what has come into our life has been so much richer and fuller and meaningful, and helped us become better people. And our kids have found greater confidence, and the fruits of those decisions of digging in deeper on this knowledge has far exceeded, I think, our expectations. But we would be remiss to say that it hasn't come at a cost. Our lives are fundamentally different.
It has come at a huge cost. But that's exactly what Jesus says that it will. And he says, take up your cross. And
it really is a rebirth, right? Like you are born again in that way.
You have to die. Let the old self and all the old patterns and everything you knew, you have to let them die off. And that can feel really scary, especially when it's all that you've ever known. And then you're letting go of certain parts of yourself, but then you're also letting go of relationships that really only were in relation with you as long as you had those unhealthy parts that allowed them to take advantage of you or whatever.
One of the examples that I love, it was a really good visualization for me, and it actually came from Michelle Obama. She was speaking, she was a keynote speaker at one of the Qualtrics conferences, I think 2 years ago. They were talking about just leadership. They were talking about relationships. And she used the example of climbing a mountain, and that there are times that you stop at base camp and you check in to make sure that everything is good. And then you keep ascending the mountain. And when you look at your own life, that's what we're doing, right? We're climbing and we're continuing to reach new heights and do these things. The hard part is sometimes at base camp, you might be ready to ascend the mountain and others are not. And you have to leave them behind because you have to keep going on the climb. And that is one of life's crazy journeys. And it is scary and it is sad and hard sometimes, but you can't have other people tether you down and weigh you down so that you can't continue to reach your ultimate potential in life. And that's just really hard. So I love that visualization. And I feel like that has been what it is for us. We can still look back on our journey and have deep appreciation for those that helped get us to where we are today. But we will not just stay here because other people want us to stay stuck and want us to stay small and want us to not grow and flourish. And so if you're listening to this podcast and that resonates with you, you might be on the same journey that we're on, or you might be at the beginning of that journey, still trying to get the bravery to take that next step. And we hope we can be there as a support in both sides of that, regardless of where your journey is, because we want to also just testify and share our experiences of the incredible fruit. And almost like the vistas at the top of the mountain are far greater up there than they are down below. So join us on that journey.
Just understanding that when you are doing things, and I would say when it comes to relationships, I would just say, do not try to do it without anchoring to Jesus Christ first. He is the master leader, and we have to be willing to submit to his direction. And it's worth learning how and experimenting upon that, because otherwise it's easy to talk yourself out of, am I really doing the right thing? It's scary. But when you do it, it's like John said, what we have is so much richer now, and we have actually far fewer relationships. I used to feel like my worth was dependent upon my popularity, in a sense, how many people loved me, who my friends were, are they important? I used to get more caught up in that trap of, I need to be with people who are someone, I'm someone myself.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, none of that matters at all. In fact, I prefer to not have friends who are someone in the world's lens, because
unless there's someone from the purest of places,
yes,
because there
course.
are
And
amazing
there are
people
really
that
wonderful people who have gone really far and done
but they're real.
wonderful things, but they're real. And can I be real and loved and accepted? And that's the barometer of how real can I be. John and I really are each other's best friend. And most weekends we're just, I don't know, we hang out together and we do things together. And it's not because we don't love to be with other people. We do. And we're always up for it. But we also
not always. There's times I'm not up for it and I want to stay home.
Sometimes we just want to sleep. But the point is, we don't need that. We are anchored. There's just so much fulfillment in Jesus Christ, first and foremost, and the strength and confidence that he brings. And then when he helps you unify your marriage, every other good relationship is just a wonderful bonus. But we have what we need right here in this home. And it will continue to be that way as our children grow and they have spouses. We will be able to let them go and have them do their own thing and put their marriages first, because we're confident in our own marriage. That was one of my biggest priorities, is how do I get to a point where I can support my children in doing the very best thing for them and not make that about me or be sad that they're not giving me enough time. That's not healthy for them to go pave their own way and be worried about me back here. It shouldn't matter at that point.
Yeah. And it really does. It comes back to that marriage. And as we've talked about it and we've reflected, how have we been able to do this? We've both said we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have each other. If we didn't have a unified marriage, it would have been so much harder to pursue this journey, because it's lonely. It can be really lonely, but because we have each other and Christ and our little family nucleus, it does work. And so that would be another thing. And we will talk a lot about marriage on this podcast and on the various social media platforms, because that's also really integral. It's like Jesus Christ is the center, but a good marriage is paired and can cleave to Jesus Christ. And so that's what it's all about. And we really want to help break that down in simple ways and just small, simple gospel truths. And how can we apply those to our life? When things are out of alignment, it might feel uncomfortable at times, and that's okay. Lean into the discomfort, and we'll be there to tell our good, bad, and ugly stories along the way, because it has not been perfect by any means, but you can do it. And we want to just cheer people on as they go down that path. So to talk about, it was the Living in Truth Project, and now we've readdressed it at Cleave. And I actually don't remember the evolution entirely of how we decided to shift, but it was during that break on this podcast. We knew we still wanted to do the podcast. Ashley felt deeply prompted to do the podcast. I equally felt that way. So we knew we weren't saying goodbye to it. We just needed to pivot a little bit from the original concept. We loved this concept of cleave because the first place you hear the word cleave in the Bible is in the book of Genesis. It talks about cleaving.
We went down a bit of an Adam and Eve path. There was some brainstorming around that idea.
Yeah, with
And
marriage being more of the nucleus of it.
and then we just came to cleave, and we both really liked it, especially as we learned the term.
So it resonated with us. The creative process is so fun for me on naming things and branding it. And what does that all look like?
Very, very creative. He did major in marketing, and his mind just never stops thinking. And it's one of the things that I really love about him. He sees a lot of things that like I just miss entirely.
We are a very good yin and yang, though, on all of this. But yeah, I geek out a little bit more about words matter, and I want to make sure that we have the right word and the name that really can embody and encapsulate what we're trying to go for. As we were studying this out, and we came to the word cleave, and we then researched what cleave means, it actually has dual meaning, and they are contrasting meaning. Cleave means to separate, and it also means to bind together. And when you talk about marriage and where God commands Adam and Eve to cleave, there is an element of what does he ask them to do? It's leave the garden. So there is this leaving. They're out in the lone and dreary wilderness together, but they're cleaving to one another. So there's this separateness, and there's also this binding together. And we also felt that was illustrative of our story as well. We've sadly had to separate from family and people that we love and care about, and we've had to cleave to one another. And so in our own way, we've had our own Adam and Eve journey that we've been on, but I think that we're not unique on that. I think everybody needs to go through that experience in life. If you're not doing it, like Ash mentioned, those that are enmeshed, it's out of order with God. When you're enmeshed with your family of origin and not with your spouse, that is where it wreaks major havoc.
And I have some good stories on that I'll tell
Yeah.
later in future episodes of some of my enmeshment. John had the intuitive wisdom to help me see that what I was doing was out of order. And once he opened my eyes to it, I feel like the Spirit is very good at helping me to see truth once it's pointed out. Look at this. This is what you're doing. He explained it to me, and then the Spirit witnessed to me. That was true. And again, I didn't even know that I was doing anything wrong. That's why we want to teach so badly, because it's not about good and evil as a blatant, obvious thing. Sometimes you're sabotaging your own relationship and you have no idea. And you're doing your best, and you are doing your best, but you just don't know better.
Yeah. So anyways, that's the concept of Cleave. And you're probably like, okay, so what things are you guys going to talk about on this podcast? And the answer is we'll continue to see where it goes, but we do have some good ideas. And a lot of this comes from you, the viewers, the listeners, the followers on the social platforms. You have already inspired us on what things the world needs. Like, what can our unique contribution to the world be? And it's blown our mind a little bit in just how quickly the community has grown, because we've tried this a few years ago and it had modest growth and some interest. But over the last 60 days, it's been explosive to the point where we have over 50,000 followers between the social media platforms. And the engagement is huge. We're getting private direct messages round the clock from people, comments that are bearing their soul, people that have been in pain and frustrated and just didn't know what it was, that are finally starting to get these aha moments. We've had our own aha moments along the way. We feel a lot of stewardship of that, wanting to help with those subjects. And to dive in, what you're going to see us do is identify truth. And we really want it to be a fusion based on our interests, kind of the spiritual and religious coupled with the scientific and the human development psychology side of things. And sometimes people think that those don't go together. We believe that they absolutely do. And that if people are making excuses for not wanting to learn one side or the other, that's because they're not willing to really take that step into growth. But I think that you can marry those two together, and there's insights on both ends that illuminates our
Well,
brains
all truth
constantly.
comes from Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
whether it's from a religious perspective or more of a scientific view. Truth is truth, and it all comes to him. Pure truth, it absolutely does and will function together. And I love that. I feel like those with faith in science continue to see that as well.
We have a list of what season 2 of this podcast will look like based on the content that has resonated most with our audiences. We want to talk about things like spiritual manipulation and spiritual narcissism, for example. We want to talk about forgiveness and what that actually means, because that doesn't mean that you will necessarily have reconciliation sometimes with people that have harmed you.
Another word with a very loaded, people think that forgiveness is one thing,
Yeah.
my description of love earlier, and then you get down to it and you're like, what my brain interpreted when I hear the word forgiveness is actually not forgiveness. That's not what is entailed. And so that's can be a very loaded term that is misinterpreted.
It's a huge thing to tackle, but we are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We are devout. This is not an LDS podcast. We really are looking at Christianity at large, but we've seen that in not only our religious faith, but others, there are some patterns that do exist. There have been people that have used and weaponized the gospel of Jesus Christ to get power or their way. They have done harm, and they use tactics like guilt and manipulation and obligation and compliance. And that is not Christ's way. So we'll talk about that. And I hope to unwire that a little bit so that future generations do not do that, because there has been a lot of damage. And we talk sometimes about our generation as elder millennials, if you will. We've seen a lot of people that have left the church. When we dig down to the root of it with several of them, is it really the church and the gospel that was the problem, or is it the way their family used the gospel in their home? That is where a lot of the trauma actually comes from. But then if they're going to leave one or the other, many leave the church because it's harder to leave family.
Yeah,
And
the most basic human need is a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And we get that in this life, first and foremost, from family. On the religious front, it doesn't matter what religion you are.
Yeah.
All religion is used for good and truth by the Savior, I believe. But Satan will use it for his purposes too. And that's why you will find the best of the best and the worst of the worst within religion. And it happens in them all.
But this isn't a crusade necessarily to go down that path of let's go on a witch hunt to find the people that are not it. No, we want to teach correct principles, let you govern yourselves. But it's ultimately, how can you protect yourself through that process?
We're hoping to help people increase their discernment by just being aware.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. There's been just fascinating little nuggets. Some of our most popular videos have been on triangulation, for example. And the very simple principle on that has been an example of, if your parent was gossiping about you to a sibling and vice versa, and then trying to get the two of you pinned up against each other, and they're at the center of it, this is this concept of triangulation. And it blows people's mind. Oh my gosh, my parents did that to me. And as a result, my relationship with my sister is strained. It opens up a whole world of insight. So sometimes we'll get really granular with it, and we'll talk just about what is triangulation, and we'll use some examples.
It doesn't always look like a parent intentionally trying to pit the kids against each other. But when you have a parent who is the voice and making phone calls to this person and phone calls to this person, and then she said this, sometimes it even looks like they're trying to bring you together, but they're being the deliverers of all the information and everything's going through the parent. The parent can be well-intended, but the very nature of that is going to make everybody mad.
And that's the other thing that you'll realize is that almost with all of these situations, it's not that people are just so horribly corrupt and wicked and they're trying to abuse people. Most people have done these things with the best of intentions.
Well-intended, yes.
And yet they have caused a lot of harm. So that's the other thing is we want to bring awareness to this. The thing I've loved about the triangulation example, though, is of all the subjects we've hit, I think I've had more parents have an aha moment with that one and go, oh my gosh, I did that. Now what do I do? How can I unwind this? For whatever reason, that little example has been one that has just opened up a lot of insight for people. Another one.
You have to love the people who are self-aware enough
Yeah.
to do that and say, oh, I have done that. And you and I have been filled with those moments.
Oh, yeah.
And as we have had to change the way we exist in the world, we too have had to see the unhealthy behaviors in ourselves that we were doing that we were not even conscious of.
Yeah. Another one that we feel very passionate about is the weaponization of commandments. Honor thy father and thy mother, for example. We could do a whole episode on that one.
And we will.
And the number, we know we're not alone in this, but the number of people that have had parents weaponize that commandment to get them to just simply comply and fall on the sword has been so destructive.
This is just my personal opinion because I am passionate about this. It was a tactic that was used on me heavily and within my family. I don't think that should ever come out of a parent's mouth to their child, ever. That is a directive from God to each person on earth. A parent should never, ever even be saying those words to their children because it just becomes a sense of control.
And really, that's any commandment or any scripture. When you're using it as a weapon to try to control and manipulate someone to do what you want them to do, that is a problem. We need everyone.
What does it mean to honor?
Yeah.
A lot of parents don't understand that.
We will talk about no contact and estrangement at periods as well, and the grief associated with it. We're deeply passionate about grief too. My career has been in death care, working with funeral homes, cemeteries, hospices. I lost my dad when he was 46 years old. And so we have that dynamic, but there's also a very real grief attached to those that have had to be estranged from family members, that have been abused by family members, that have lost their faith, lost their marriage. There is loss there. And so we want to talk through grief and how Jesus Christ can help heal that. And really, it comes down to how to rebuild your personal identity and find out who you are specifically and heal yourself first. Because when you can do that, so many other things start to fall in place. And you can't control anyone else. You can only control yourself. We want to give you tools and resources to be able to build the life that you want for yourself and that ultimately Jesus Christ wants for you, and that you can fulfill your divine purpose here on this earth. But when it comes down to our values, one other thing that we want to make abundantly clear as we go down this journey is that we are not pro estrangement or pro no contact. We're absolutely not trying to destroy families or put any level of strain on families. We want healthy families. We want healing to exist. We want deep and loving relationships. That is what we're advocates for. I just don't want people to get a misunderstanding of that sometimes. And sometimes people want to just put us in that camp because they think, how could you ever put yourself in this situation? We haven't. It's been on both sides. They have ultimately kicked us out. But
yeah, estrangement is like the nuclear option.
Yeah.
It's the worst of the worst. It is so painful. No rational person would just flippantly decide to do this or advise somebody else do it. It's every alternative option should be explored many times and has been with us. We have done everything that we could possibly think of for years at this point. And that is still part of the grief that exists within me, is that this is what it is. But Yes, we are not pro estrangement.
No.
We just understand that based off of the level of health or dysfunction of one's family, it might become a reality for some as well. And so we're here to help just tell the story, and different people will get different things depending on what their individual stories are, because no one's going to have our story, and our story isn't 100% applicable to anybody else because we are all unique. We're going to do the best we can by telling our own story and the things that we've learned, allow people to take from it what's useful to them.
Yeah. So hopefully this is something that you're excited about. I know that this episode has been more of just a re-immersion into these subjects for us. We will get more specific on the topics with each week. And so I wanted to wrap up this episode by helping you as the listeners and the viewers and this community that we are so grateful for to understand what to expect from us and what we're committing to do this year. And it's going to be a feat for us to re-engage with this. But the good news is we've been getting into a cycle with the social media content. So we now feel like we can take on the podcast again. Our goal is to do a longer episode, anywhere from 30 minutes to a little over an hour, but we want to keep it more towards the 30, 45-minute range on a weekly basis. That's our promise to you. One other idea that we're going to implement is like this Cleave thought of the day. You'll probably see peppered into the stream a 3-minute thought or a 5-minute thought that is just there as a little blip to enhance your day on your journey. So you'll get a combo of the longer form and the shorter form. Another one that I'm very excited about, but we just have to dive in. And even if you're listening to this now, comment, message us. We want to hear from you about what questions, what struggles you're dealing with. And even if we don't know the answer, it gives us an opportunity to dive in and study it and then bring the best resources to the table. Some of the episodes we also want to be more of a Q&A based format where we may take the top 5 questions of the week that we get from all of you, and then we will address it and discuss and study it and bring some of that material so that everybody can benefit from it, because we're also spending a lot of time one-on-one with people when they bring questions. That's awesome. And we still will do that to whatever degree possible. It gets a little harder the bigger the community gets. But we also want to share with the group, with the class, everything that we've learned so that everyone can benefit from it. So anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think you hit it all.
Okay.
You did a great job.
So my last plug is this. We need your help. If this resonates with you, if you will please do us a favor by subscribing to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on, Spotify, Apple, whatever, and then also subscribe on YouTube. That's going to help us grow this long form format. Obviously, you guys have done an amazing job on Instagram and TikTok. That's where our community core exists. But we really think that this can grow on the podcast and YouTube platform. So that would be my ask, is as you listen to this, subscribe. If it resonates with you, share it with someone else that could benefit. When you have questions, bring them to the table, and that will inspire us to bring the best content so that we can all learn, grow, and heal together. That's what we got for you this week, folks.
Yeah, we're excited.
Let's do it. All right. Have a great one, and we will be talking to you soon.
See you later.